I completed every single mission in Zenless Zone Zero, as well as beaten the hardest boss available in the game. To answer this question, everybody has been asking me, how is the game? To be perfectly honest, Zenless Zone Zero surpasses my expectation in many ways, but it also has some major problems. The biggest one being that combat is only 20% of the game, and if you thought that this game was a roguelike action RPG, well, think again, because you're completely wrong, and I'm gonna tell you why in this video. However, overall speaking, I think the game is incredibly good, the combat is super amazing, and there's a lot of good things going for the game, starting with this banger soundtrack. Zenless Zone Zero have incredibly fast-paced, engaging combat. It is super top-notch, super amazing in my opinion. The biggest thing that I immediately noticed is that things like dodging or switching character doesn't have a global cooldown, which made the game overall feel really fluid and really smooth to play. Because whenever you want to perform an action, you will be getting that action. Overall, this made the game feel really responsive. One of the biggest confusion that people have is that Zenless Zone Zero combat is really easy and all you do is just spam left click. Maybe that's true at the beginning of the game, but as you dive deeper into the game and as you start to learn how your character operates, you realize that's not true at all. Every single characters have their own unique combo. They even come with an entire list of combo move lists that you can perform, just like a fighting game. In fact, I suspect that Zenless Zone Zero is heavily inspired and driven by fighting games because of how the team combat works in this game. Rather than having main DPS character and support character in your team, the way team building work in Zenless Zone Zero feel much more like the fighting game style of point and assist, where point characters refer to the character you start with, which is currently on the field, and then assist characters are the character you have idle waiting in the background, ready to handshake your point character and tag in at any time. Combat in Zenless Zone Zero feel like a constant tagging and tagging out. Rather than having one character do most of the heavy lifting and doing most of the damage, Zenless Zone Zero heavily inspire you to play as a unit, as a team, where you're gonna be constantly switching character in and out to perform their job. When a character gets knocked down, no problem, just switch to your next idle character to do a assist recovery. Or when you finally see an opening on your enemy by, filling up their stagger bar, you can perform a chain attack through your entire team so that each member of your team can get their damage in. If you're coming from Genshin Impact, this is also known as the quick swap playstyles used by a character like Xiangling or the national team, where you're just switching through your entire team of characters. Except Zenless Zone Zero cracks this up to the max and even does it for you. In fact, a lot of action in Zenless Zone Zero even switch the character for you, again known as assists. Overall, again, this makes the game feel really fast paced, the combat is really amazing, and I'm absolutely in love with the combat. There will be a new video releasing next week diving deeper into the aspect of Zenless Zone Zero combat in detail, which be sure to stay subscribed for that. However, I want to dive into the biggest problem of Zenless Zone Zero in this video. While the combat is super amazing and it's really worth the hype, you don't get a lot of it. This right here is the true gameplay of Zenless Zone Zero. This here is what we like to call the TV gameplay, and it dominates majority of your time on Zenless Zone Zero. If you're doing a main story quest mission, 65% of your gameplay is gonna look like this, rather than the super engaging combat. And even worse, if you're doing a side quest or any other quest that's not the main quest, this is gonna be 90 to 95% of your gameplay, which means you only get 5% combat time. During the TV gameplay, you are represented by this little thing known as the Bang Boot, and you can move to a adjacent TV kind of anytime. Your objective will be different based on the level. You could be going to an end goal, and in the process there are some paths you have to open by pressing a button, maybe solving some puzzle, and sometimes these puzzles can be challenging, especially the optional puzzles are extremely challenging and can really get you stuck. X#hard // bottom right is red trapezoid, top right is a blue heart, and then blue cross. Oh my god, I'm too good. All of these TV gameplay have one thing in common. The TV gameplay is extremely slow, extremely tedious, and extremely frustrating to play. I've not heard a single positive comment about the TV gameplay. Every single other player I've spoken to or content creator absolutely hate and despise the TV gameplay. In fact, as far as I've heard from the Chinese player base, majority of the player in China right now absolutely hate this TV gameplay. So why is the TV gameplay so bad? Well, one, is not super engaging. It is often just go press this button to open this path and then go press this other button to open the path in front until you can get to the ending goal. But the second biggest problem with the TV gameplay is that each action takes forever to resolve. If you press a button, there's like a 15-second animation before you can once again take control of your characters. Even moving just to an adjacent TV takes forever. You have to move one TV at a time, and it could take a second just to move from one TV to the TV next to it. And with hundreds of TV that you have to move across, that's a lot of time you spend just moving around these TV, which feels incredibly long and tedious. The worst thing about the TV is actually the feeling of it being a blocker to what you want to play, which is the combat. At least if you're a combat enjoyer like me. These TV really just feels like a tedious barrier that you have to get through before you can play the part of the game that you actually enjoy. And so you feel forced to go through it, not because you like it, but because they're what's preventing you from actually playing the game and having fun of the game. And so it continues to add on to this frustration of, when do I get to play the game? When do I get to play the game? How many TV I have to go through before I can play the game? To give you an idea of how bad it really is, in your first 2 hours, you probably spend at most 20 minutes fighting against any kind of enemy. The other 1 hour 40 minutes is just dialogue or TV or other stuff. So imagine you're a streamer like Asmongo and you get sponsors to play this game for 2 hours. What are you supposed to show your audience? I don't know how they expect you to sell the game when majority of your footages isn't gonna be about what make the game fun, which is your combat. If you remember about MiHoYo other title like Genshin Impact, at the beginning of the game, after you go through like a quick tutorial and cutscene, you get to do whatever you want. You get to explore the world immediately, which is what the game is about, exploration. If you play their other game, Honkai Star Rail, you literally start with a really strong character, Kafka, and you get to experience what the game has to offer, and that's how they get you hooked. For Zenless Zone Zero, your first 5 to 10 hours is extremely boring, and you might keep hearing people that there will be light at the end of the tunnel. The combat and the end game is super fun, which I'll slowly cover. But in order for you to get to the end game, you have to get through like 20 to 30 hours of extremely boring TV combat, which can easily turn people away. I know so many people, even some of my other streamer friends, just said they can't do it because their first 5 to 10 hours is just so boring and they're like, I can't do it. I don't really know how MiHoYo is going to address the problem of the TV being really slow and really frustrating to play. It is evident that they spend a lot of time and effort into building this TV system, and majority of the game is really built on this TV system. But the good news is that it is only the second closed beta. MiHoYo do have a lot of time to take in this player feedback and hopefully make the TV gameplay less frustrating, maybe speed up the animation at least or something, maybe give some shortcuts so that the people who don't really give a shit about it can just get it out as fast as possible. Because what's way at the end of the tunnel is the super amazing endgame loop of Zenless Zone Zero that have the entire Chinese audience base hooked up right now, which is the rogue-like mode. The main endgame loop in Zenless Zone Zero isn't any different from MiHoYo's other title or even majority of the other gacha game on the market, where every day you log in and you spend your energy gathering resources like to level up your characters, or just like MiHoYo's other game, to farm for random stat artifact and hope you get a good one so that you can make your character stronger that way. But where do you actually use and demonstrate your character strength? In their endgame gameplay mode, Hollow Core Zero, the roguelike mode with super challenging enemy. The endgame mode, Hollow Core Zero, is extremely challenging, especially if you do what we call a max risk one, which is turning on additional optional modifier that make the game significantly harder if you do really want to go for a challenge. Hollow Core Zero is what actually reassembled the roguelike element of the game, where instead of having the TV to solve puzzle, now you have the selection to either go to a different path. The path on the left might have buffs or something like that, while the path on the right might have a shop that unlock like healing or something like that to top up your character's HP, and you have to make a strategic decision which path you want to go down. Most importantly though is that after each combat in Hollow Core Zero, you're presented with a choice of free augment that will alternate your gameplay. It pretty much work exactly like Simulated Universe from Honkai Star Rail. They could be just giving you more raw damage, giving you more utility, or completely changing the way you play the game. One of my favorite is that, of course, doing back attack will now give you 30% critical damage, which incentivizes you to start positioning your characters so that you can perform these back attack now, which change your gameplay into positional gameplay where you want to constantly be hitting the enemy's back. Holocaust Zero is where the game actually checks for your characters and your skills. Dodging is extremely important in this game mode because there's no healer in this game and you have to go through many enemies that hit extremely hard or could even one-shot you. So saving your HP and protecting yourself in any way is extremely important, but you still have to maintain DPS uptime because enemy could heal and they recover stagger bar over time. So if you don't properly maintain your DPS uptime, you will not be able to do damage and you will suffer against enemy. As Zenless Zone Zero continues to develop on their enemy database, making enemies that are more challenging or have unique attack different from one or the other, or maybe even special bosses that require you to do special mechanics in order to beat them, I can see Zenless Zone Zero having an extremely engaging and fun endgame loop in their new game mode Holocaust Zero. Something really good about Zenless Zone Zero's endgame is that once you have completed all the side quests and all the main quests, the TV gameplay disappears. They don't exist anymore since you're done with them. And so all you are left with is the extremely fun part of the Zenless Zone Zero combat, which is the real endgame loop. I know this video didn't necessarily answer maybe all of your question in detail. Some of the typical question people ask is the gacha like 50-50 and is there pity? Which of course, yes it is. This is like any other MiHoYo game. The gacha is a 50-50 system and the pity is at 90, and there's also the artifact grind with the substat and something like that. Typically speaking, they are just the same as other MiHoYo gacha game like Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact. So I wanted to keep this video short and precise onto the main point, which is how is Zenless Zone Zero and is the game fun? In which case, after all of this, I really have to say that I really enjoyed the game. It still truly surpasses my expectation other than the fucking TV. But again, the combat in this game is extremely fun, it's extremely addicting, it is super fast paced, it is super action packed, super engaging, and of course skill based, which is what a lot of people were looking for from Genshin Impact previously. And I'll tell you right now that the Chinese audience is having so much fun with the end game. The main reason being that they got their beta a couple days earlier than the NA got it, so they're able to hit their higher level. Right now, most of the Chinese hardcore players are hitting level 40, which is where the full endgame unlock, which is where you can start to really grind out the gear for your characters to build them, and it gives you the right to challenge the max risk Holocaust Zero, which is the absolute hardest boss so far. So it is super great, the endgame is super fun, super excited, and it really did surpass my expectation. The biggest thing though, just like I said at the beginning of the video, I think calling Zenless Zone Zero a roguelike game is completely wrong. Only one single game mode is roguelike, and that is the Holocaust Zero, which you won't even be playing 90% of the time until you get the end game. And just like how Honkai Star Rail have Simulated Universe, but you still wouldn't call it a roguelike game because it is only one game mode that reassembled the roguelike element. Zenless Zone Zero, in my opinion, also doesn't exactly belong into the roguelike category. Majority of the player is just gonna go through the standard experience of going through the story, going through the side quests, perform some action here and there, and never really truly get to experience a roguelike. And if you are a hardcore combat player, well, that's a different story. But that's pretty much my review of the second closed beta for Zenless Zone Zero. And again, I'll make a couple more videos diving into each aspect deeper, including how does the roguelike really work, what does the combat really look like, and stuff like that, and how does each character different from the other characters. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with all of those videos coming in the future, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.